Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I really want to thank you and Chairman Shelby for allowing our committee members to participate in this hearing virtually today. And I want to thank all of our committee staff for setting everything up. And I want to thank all of our witnesses who are joining us today as well. Your agencies play a critical role in the development of some of the most important tools against the COVID-19 pandemic: safe and effective diagnostics to identify the cases, therapies to help patients and frontline workers fight this disease, and ultimately a vaccine to move towards ending this crisis. That is why Congress has appropriated more than $6.5 billion to BARDA and $3 billion to NIH for work on medical countermeasures against COVID-19. And we know we'll need more funding, particularly to distribute and promote a safe, effective vaccine down the line. And we also know we're going to need to hold this administration accountable to avoid repeating mistakes and delays. The Trump administration put politics ahead of public health by promoting unproven treatments and steering PPE contracts to unqualified political allies. They failed to plan in a comprehensive way for nationwide challenges like scaling up testing and contact tracing, and ignored and exacerbated existing health disparities that left Black, Latino, and tribal communities to face the worst of this crisis. If we want to get out of this mess anytime soon, the Trump administration has to do better, particularly when it comes to developing a safe, effective vaccine that is widely available. What I hear from experts is that while we all want a vaccine fast, a vaccine that is fast but ineffective will fall short of what is needed to turn the tide on this pandemic. That is why it is more than concerning that the Trump administration sidelined our leading scientists at CDC, removed the head of BARDA, reportedly for putting science and public health over allegiance to President Trump, and took BARDA experts off leadership of contracts related to the search for a COVID-19 vaccine. I also have concerns about why BARDA has chosen to invest solely in new vaccine technologies that have only been studied experimentally and never made it to market, while not pursuing older, proven technologies. Meanwhile, the administration still has not provided any explanation of how it is selecting vaccine candidates, what the risks are of narrowing down that shortlist, or addressed concerns about potential conflicts in contracts that predate this crisis. And it still has not provided a comprehensive national vaccine plan. We saw with testing how the administration's stubborn refusal to plan led to totally avoidable delays. So Congress clearly needs to act to hold President Trump accountable when it comes to vaccines, or risk another inadequate plan that offers too little, too late, or worse, no plan at all. That's why I am working on a proposal to require the Trump administration to provide a comprehensive plan for how it will make sure we get a vaccine that is safe and effective, produced at scale and distributed nationwide, and free and available to everyone in a way that addresses the health disparities this pandemic has made worse. This plan has to ensure that research and development is rigorous, science-driven, and inclusive, and it must lay out specific standards, timelines, and milestones, a commitment to be fully transparent about the clinical trial data experts will use to evaluate safety and effectiveness, and strategies for combating vaccine hesitancy and misinformation. When we finally develop a vaccine, we will need to safely manufacture hundreds of millions of doses for the US alone and billions globally as fast as possible. And that means just as many specialized glass vials, syringes, stoppers, and a lot more. Making all of that happen requires planning to manage the supply chain and navigate challenges like potential bottlenecks. We also need a plan for when we begin to distribute vaccines, to guide critical decisions about who gets the vaccine first, like frontline healthcare workers, high-risk groups, and tackles barriers that could otherwise limit access by making sure the vaccine is free for everyone and addressing health disparities, which have already made this crisis so much worse for communities of color. And while we need this plan as soon as possible, we also need to be clear about what scientists and clinicians have cautioned, which is that while there is no guarantee a vaccine will be ready by the end of this year, much less by this fall, there are people suffering with COVID-19 right now who need proven therapeutics to help them beat this disease. While a vaccine is our best hope for stopping this virus, it is not our only means of fighting it, nor is it a panacea on its own. So I'm alarmed that while this administration has invested heavily in vaccine development, it is treating other priorities as an afterthought by investing far less in better diagnostics that can identify infections early in the course of the illness and prevent further spread, and pulling the plug on therapeutics that could provide life-saving relief for hospitalized patients at the greatest risk of dying or suffering long-term health effects. Congress provided funding for HHS to invest in a spectrum of medical countermeasures to fight this virus, not just vaccines. We need to invest in every type of medical countermeasure and to do it in a way that benefits everyone in our country equitably, because we know right now this virus is disproportionately impacting communities of colors. For months now, I have been pressing for comprehensive demographic data on access to testing, positive test results, hospitalizations, intensive care unit admissions, and fatalities. And I'm frustrated that we don't have all the data we need yet, but the picture we do have is alarmingly clear. People in the Black community, Latino community, and tribal communities are 3 to 5 times more likely to be hospitalized for COVID-19 than white people. And the death rate for people of color is 2 to 3 times that for white people. Those devastating health disparities are a symptom of a larger pattern of systemic racism and underinvestment in communities of color, and a warning that we need to work as fast as possible on an additional relief package to address those disparities before they get worse, to protect our workers, our students, our families, and continue to support our communities as they fight this historic crisis. We can't know exactly how long until a safe, effective vaccine is widely available, or how long before we can all safely go back to work, back to school, greet our friends with a handshake or a hug. But we do know that the decisions that we make today, whether we prioritize science or not, whether we plan ahead or not, whether we care for every community or not, will make a huge difference in terms of where we are a year from now. So it's absolutely critical we get this decision right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to the testimony and to our questions today.